Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and welcome to Monday Night 49ers. Got Niner Nick Newman joining me tonight. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good, Jack. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. I'm looking forward to talking with you. It's been a little while since we've been able to do this. We used to do this all the time over on the roundtables and stuff.
I know it's been a while. It's a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. Lots to talk about. Lots to talk about.
just a little bit going on around the 49ers, right? So,
Absolutely.
what a day today's been, right? We start the morning off with the report that the 49ers have been supposedly had been offered 2 second-round draft picks for Jimmy Garoppolo. That leads into the trade today of Matt Ryan from Atlanta to the Colts for a third and a lower and a lower salary cap number, right about the same as Garoppolo's. And then you have Atlanta then going ahead and signing their quarterback that they're going to use for the bridge. It looks like Marcus Mariota. And then right after all that happens, Jameis Winston lands in New Orleans, and there's not very many places left for the 49ers to turn.
There's not at all. I woke up this morning, I checked Twitter right away around 6:20 a.m. First thing I see, there's an offer on the table. 49ers are being offered 2 second-round picks for Jimmy Garoppolo, and I didn't buy it for a second. It was Mike Florio, his report, saying that John Lynch is telling league circles or people within the league circle that there's an offer on the table, and there's just no way. And then you see Matt Ryan go for a third-round pick, and right now that's a great pickup for the Colts, I think. Matt Ryan's a veteran guy. He has a lot of postseason experience, as does Garoppolo. But as far as the talent level goes and being able to contribute to a team that's on the fringe of contending, I like the pickup of Matt Ryan going to the Colts. But you're right. It kills the 49ers. It completely limits what they – do they even have anywhere left to turn? I don't know if there's anywhere to go as far as finding a trade partner goes. So what's next? Are they going to cut him? Are they going to keep him? Do we have a quarterback controversy on our hands again? I sure as hell hope not. But, yeah, wild day in the NFL.
It's gone all over the place. I agree with you. I like the move for the Colts. I think they have a good quarterback that can take them into the playoffs this year and maybe even make a run. It's funny. They did that with Phillip Rivers a couple of years ago. So now they get another older quarterback who I think is actually in a better spot than Rivers was 2 seasons ago. And then I like what Atlanta did. I think that kind of points you in the direction they're probably going to go quarterback this year in the draft, either this year or next year. And then Winston going back to New Orleans makes sense. He was doing really well there last year before the injury. So that makes sense. And again, it's a much cheaper cap hit for New Orleans and all those teams that are involved. Obviously there probably would have been a restructure done with Garoppolo to lower his number, but still really good moves. I thought from all 3 teams today. And like you were saying, it really only leaves Carolina, Seattle as the 2 that we know for sure need quarterbacks. And then the third one that is out there would be Houston. The Texans they're telling us that they want to go ahead and just move forward with Davis Mills, but that could be part of their negotiation strategy to try to drive the price down as well.
I hear you on that. Looking at the Texans, though, it makes little sense to make the move for Garoppolo. You're a bottom feeding team in the NFL. Garoppolo isn't exactly a bottom feeding quarterback, although I do know a lot of people feel that way. But he'll keep you competitive, and you're trying to build for the future. If you're the Texans, draft high. You don't have a lot going on for you right now around your organization. Then you look at the Panthers. They just made the move for Sam Darnold, and they have some talent on their roster. They do. Maybe upgrading from Sam Darnold to Jimmy Garoppolo, which I do feel is an upgrade. That's why I wanted no part of Sam Darnold last offseason, because that was the discussion that was taking place within the 49ers community as fans, within the Twitter community. Should the team acquire Sam Darnold? I'm so happy they avoided that catastrophe. So right. I do think Jimmy Garoppolo makes Carolina more of a contender than they are with Sam Darnold. The third team, you're looking at who we just leave off at? The Falcons. No, the Falcons just got Marcus Mariota, who I also like for them, given their situation and what they're in. So we got the Seahawks. The Seahawks. There's no way. How crazy would that be if Garoppolo does end up in Seattle? I don't really see that happening. But if he's really salty towards the organization for the way things have played out, why wouldn't you go to Seattle and help them win ball games? I would do that if I was Jimmy Garoppolo. Be petty. You want to cut me? I'm going to go to the division rival, make them better, play you twice a year, and see how it all pans out. That would be my mindset, being wired the way that I am. I just don't really see that happening, but it could. It could.
No,
Drew Lock. we'll see what happens with Drew Lock.
Sure. No, and I agree. I mean, if they do cut him, Seattle would be a really good destination for him to choose. I think they have a decent team. He might be running for his life, but I wanted to see. I find the Florio thing today to be really interesting, right? Here's a guy who comes out this morning saying that the 49ers have 2 second-round picks on the table, and then not more, just a couple hours later, you get the news of the trade from Ryan for a third, and that one just kind of smells a little fishy to me. I don't know about you.
Of course, it's so fishy. I don't think it's legitimate at all that there's an offer that includes 2 second-round picks for Jimmy Garoppolo, and if the team hasn't run to the phone to Roger Goodell, submit whatever they need to submit to get that done by now, I couldn't. How? But then again, this is the same organization that wouldn't give up Nick Mullins. They were reluctant to trade Nick Mullins a couple off seasons ago. So is this surprising that they're being this stubborn with Jimmy Garoppolo because they're not getting the true value that they feel they could get for him? Maybe. But then again, I just don't think that offer even exists. And if it does, what the hell are you doing, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan? But there's just no way. There's no way. And Mike Florio, mind you, he's the kind of guy that stirs the pot with the Niners for whatever reason. The Mac Jones going 3rd overall, the Tom Brady never ending whispers. There was supposedly some tension between Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Like, it never ends with Florio and the 49ers. So I don't think that this is a legit offer that's on the table. And if it is, it would start gaining some traction a little bit that maybe it is a fireable offense for John Lynch. Just read the room. Look what's going on around the NFL right now. Look at what these quarterbacks are going for. Deshaun Watson just went from the Texans to the Browns for damn near the same package that you gave up for Trey Lance. And Deshaun Watson, a lot of red flags there. Who knows what has happened? He's being accused of a lot of stuff. Not quite off the hook just yet, but he's a proven NFL talent. And you gave that up for Trey Lance, who might not even start this season again, as crazy as that sounds. What is going on? I don't see that happening. That's why I want Jimmy Garoppolo off the roster. I wanted him off the roster as soon as the league year started, and I'm surprised he's still here.
Yeah, I was going to say that the thing with Florio, and you kind of hit on it, was the Mac Jones piece and how he kept pushing on Jones last year, right? So to me, this kind of smells of a guy who got a little bit of the short end of the stick on the whole Mac Jones thing, and especially when you look at the way that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan kind of addressed that with the media after the draft last year, where they're kind of like, "Hey, we're not gonna there's a lot of misinformation out there. We're just going to go ahead and let them run with it. It helps us for them to be saying the wrong things." And I could see where a guy like Florio might decide to kind of take a little bit of a tweak at the 49ers here and make the 49ers look worse than they are, or say that they're, just to put him in a bad light with folks. I could see him doing something like that with, like you said, his history with them.
Definitely.
And then the whole thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is interesting. And I know when you go back, this whole thing could have been avoided if they just gotten rid of Jimmy Garoppolo last year, right? At least that's the way that some people, I think, feel about it. If you had to go back and do it all over again, would you do 2021 the same way that you did it?
Absolutely. I would do it over and over and over again. And this is something that I was pitching before the draft even happened. Granted, it didn't play out entirely the way that I was hoping it would play out. But even before the draft, I said a scenario that was growing on me: draft Trey Lance. He has a high ceiling, big body quarterback, crazy arm talent. And then because he's still a little green, give him the year to sit behind Garoppolo if he cannot blow Garoppolo out of the water and win the starting job on his own. I thought that was a great scenario. This would be the year to get rid of Garoppolo. No ifs, ands, or buts. As soon as the league year starts, bye-bye. You either trade him, you cut him. But going back to last year, I would do the same thing over and over and over again. What more could you wish other than getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl? You were a quarter and protecting a 10-point lead away from advancing to the Super Bowl. That's why you play the game. So for us to sit back and say, was it the right decision to keep Jimmy Garoppolo? Look at all the success you had last year. And who knows if that success is duplicated with Trey Lance. That's an unknown question that we'll never know. We'll never know. But what we do know is when Trey Lance stepped on the field last year, him and Kyle Shanahan had a hard time finding a rhythm. I'll stick to that. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan was comfortable calling plays for Trey Lance. You look at the second half of the Seahawks game, it was really choppy. The whole Cardinals game where he got his first NFL career start, he was treated like Derrick Henry, a battering ram going up against Cardinals defenders, just trying to run people over. Like, what was that play calling? And then the first half of the Texans game, it was really hard for Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance to kind of gel from what I saw. Then again, if you give them an entire 17-game regular season, I'm sure a lot of that smoothed out. They find the rhythm, they find their flow. Who knows where the 49ers go? But considering the end result of last season was an NFC Championship game appearance, you won road games in Dallas, in Green Bay. Granted, there was a lot of a lack of offense in those games, and you can put it on the quarterback position. Garoppolo is battling through a couple injuries. You can also look at that. So who knows what happens with Trey Lance? The bottom line is I know what happened with Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll never know what could have happened if Trey Lance was starting, but you got to feel decent about getting to the NFC Championship game. You're never going to be content losing a game of that magnitude, but because you made it that far, you have to take the step back and be like, we were in a position to get to the Super Bowl and win our first championship in 26, 27 years, but it slipped through our fingers because we couldn't protect the lead. And we couldn't move the ball when we needed to, or protect Jimmy, Tom Compton getting eaten alive, So I would do it over and over again. But like I said, we're here right now where you can cut him. You just invested all of this in a Trey Lance, this being the draft picks that you gave up to move up to select him. That is your investment. You're wasting an opportunity to make your roster better for your future. Like, you're not taking advantage of Trey Lance's rookie contract. We're on the second year right now. You cut Garoppolo, you shed $17 million right now, which would be more if he had not been injured. But you can also get that money back as long as he signs with another team. That's what I've been hearing, at least. And there's so many impact free agents out there right now that would make this team better today for Trey Lance, for the rest of the team, for the fan base. And that's where I'm at right now. I think it's hard for me to wrap my head around. It really is.
Yeah, no, this is going to be fun because we're on a little bit different page with some of the stuff. But when it comes to doing 2021 over again with Jimmy Garoppolo, I do agree with you there. I think they played it right. It worked out in their favor. They were able to, do a lot of good things in the season. And although they did come up short in the end of getting to the Super Bowl, they were right there. And like I'm just going to bring this comment up from Swan. It's good to see you. Good that you're in here. He says, "I'm glad we're happy about making to a national." NFC championship game. Well, the thing is, I think that you need to be happy with making to an NFC championship game when you consider that the 49ers halfway through the season were 3-6. And this was a team when they were 3-6, everybody was burying them, myself included. I thought they were done. I thought the season was over with. I thought it was gone. And they come back, or whatever the record, maybe it was 3-5. But at 3-5, and they get themselves to the NFC Championship game. They turned it around, and that's what makes, I think, it a good season, even though it fell a little short. So that's and then in terms of Garoppolo, he's a good quarterback. He has some issues. This injury thing pops up, and they continue to play him throughout. You can wonder what they would have done if Trey Lance had been in there or not. You can. I have a feeling they would have been okay in the playoffs, but would they have even been to that spot? Because I agree with what you're saying. There was definitely some growing pains between the two. I think we saw that kind of get worked out as the Texans game went on, but there's still going to be a little bit of that between Lance and Shanahan moving forward. Lance even kind of mentioned it at the end of the season when they asked him about his plans for the year. And I think he was talking to Rich Eisen, and he mentioned about how he and Kyle Shanahan need to get on the same page this offseason. That's one of the main things they need to do. And I agree with them because I think that caused some issues early on in their games together, the Arizona game being the worst.
To touch on Swansong's comment here too, but this is one of the problems that I had in the postseason. It was like, we just beat the Cowboys in Dallas, and here people are complaining about Jimmy Garoppolo's performance and how he missed Brandon Ayuk. Like, if that's your mindset, focusing on all these negatives when there's so many more positive things going on around you, you're going to be a miserable fan. It's okay to acknowledge success. We're not celebrating that they lost the NFC Championship game by any means, but taking a step back and looking at it, you are one of 4 teams in the NFL that can say you made it that far in 2021, which is a good thing. So, of course, we want to celebrate Super Bowls. I've been waiting to see one my entire life. It's yet to happen. I'm going to be 27 years old in May. Ever since I've been born, this team has been on a Super Bowl drought. So I'm not happy about it. But at the end of the day, they had a great turnaround, like you touched on, Jack. Who saw them making the NFC Championship game after after getting curb stomped by Colt McCoy? Who saw that? Who saw it happening? So that was a pretty cool turnaround. It was. And like, let's feel good and happy about it. Of course, it didn't end the way that we wanted to, but there were a lot of goods that happened in 2021, and Jimmy Garoppolo contributed to an extent. So I want to give him his flowers there. But the bottom line is he's got to go. He's got to go going into next year.
Well, what's even funny about it, though, is when you go back and if you think back to that time after the Arizona game and the Rams are coming in on Monday Night Football, nobody gave the 49ers a chance. There was if there was a 49er fan that really truly felt like the 49ers were going to win, you were in a small amount of people, because there wasn't anybody that really felt that way. Real quick before we move on, I know you said you're 27. The 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl since. I didn't put this as a topic that we talked about, but yep. I know back in the day, there's a little Niner, Nick Newman, who did a coin toss with the 49ers, right?
Yeah, right? That was me. Coin toss kid. I won it at training camp. I want to say I was in 6th grade. So this must have been 2006? The 2006 season. My dad took me down at training camp. I had an awesome experience. I had a Patrick Willis jersey that he signed. I completely lucked out. Then we entered this contest where there was a coin flip kid. Or was that? No, I was the coin flip. There's also like the kickoff where the kids run on the field and grab the tee. I was the coin flip. So I walked out there with Alex Smith, Jonas Jennings, Keith Lewis, Bryant Young, and maybe the 5th one was Walt Harris. So yeah, that's my Twitter headline picture. That was something though. That was a cool memory. And it was also the day that they retired Jerry Rice's jersey, I want to say. Jerry Rice was involved that day one way or another. It was against the Seahawks back in 2006.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, good time. Good memory on that.
Well, that and then you also shared the video of yourself. I believe it was the NFC divisional game against the Saints, right after the touchdown to take
right after Jimmy Graham scored the touchdown. He spiked the ball on the goalpost, did his little point in the back of his nameplate, and like I just had a towel, like I was Cam Newton or something, draped over my face. I was just in shock. That was my 5 seconds of fame right there.
That's awesome. It's fun when you think back about it because you had that, and then remember Mav, and Mav's dad has the video of himself.
The gift. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Those are some good times with that 49er group we used to
for sure.
That's awesome. And then real quick, when it comes to the quarterback situation, you said you're ready to have Jimmy Garoppolo gone. I got to ask you though, are the 49ers headed for a quarterback competition this year?
No, it's inexcusable to run this same thing back. I just feel so horrible for both of them. I thought it was really unfair to the both of them last year. And now that we've had a chance to process everything, I just think you're just jeopardizing and compromising so much. Like, here's Trey Lance thinking to himself, you drafted me 3rd overall to replace this guy. He didn't have the best season last year. We had success as a team, and he contributed to an extent, but he was not the reason why we went to the NFC Championship game. I'm here to replace him. I don't even know if I got an equal opportunity to beat him out last year in camp. It's kind of like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch went into the season with the mindset of this was Garoppolo's job to lose. And I guess Trey Lance didn't do enough to take it from him, and then he got hurt towards the end of preseason. He was still able to play week 1. But there's just no way this is headed to a quarterback controversy, and it shouldn't. It's just so draining on the mentals as fans, as the quarterbacks. Luckily, the 49ers have what seems like one of the sweetest quarterbacks. Trey Lance seems like a stand-up human being, very understanding, very humble. So they're lucky in that regard that he's not some big-headed quarterback, and I'm sure they would avoid a quarterback like that anyway, doing all the due diligence they do on the players that they draft. Aside from the Reuben Fosters and such of the world. So, it's just like, he seems like a good kid who can handle it, but there's got to be a part of him that's just like, are you freaking kidding me? This guy's still around. When am I going to take over? When am I going to feel like I have an opportunity to take his job? So I do not want to see this go to a quarterback competition or have another quarterback controversy. You just moved you owe it to Trey Lance. I guess you don't really owe it to him, but you owe it to the fans at least. Like, just think about how bad of a look that is. You gave up this many first-round picks for a guy that could potentially not start for 2 years. That's bad, Jack. That's bad. Bad business right there.
Well, let's look at it this way. If there is an open competition and Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance actually compete for the job and Trey Lance doesn't end up winning that says a lot more about Trey Lance and the team than it does about Jimmy Garoppolo and him shouldn't be on the roster. I think, you go into this and I think all of us are of the mind that Trey Lance should go into 2022 as your starting quarterback. The thing that for me, if you believe in what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch say, they were all in on building depth at the quarterback position so that if they do have some injuries, they'd be able to move forward and still be successful. That was what killed them in 2018 and 2020.
And I agree with that. I agree with that mindset too. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and I think if you go back to 2020, if Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy that entire year, they probably make the playoffs that year, even with all the injuries that they had. I think it was just a quarterback situation, and so that's really where I'm at with this team is, I would welcome a quarterback competition between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance if it's a fair 100% open competition. You got to remember, there's folks who will tell you that there has not been a quarterback competition for going back to before 2011, right? And that Jimmy Garoppolo has always just kind of been handed this position. Maybe he was handled this year a little bit. So for me, it's like, hey, why isn't the same thing for Trey Lance, right? If you want to get the best out of Trey, and if Trey has the mental mindset that everybody talks about, he should be able to handle beating out Jimmy Garoppolo. Because if he can't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, if he can't play head and shoulders above Jimmy Garoppolo, what are we doing?
Yeah,
really.
And this is my. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
No, well, my counter to that is the John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are playing with fire, keeping him around. Like, there's no good scenario that comes out of keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. Let's say Trey Lance can't beat him out, and that's the reason why Jimmy Garoppolo starting. Like, at least give fans the opportunity to see it for themselves. Because right now, it's completely justifiable to cut Jimmy Garoppolo and walk on. We've seen what the market looks like. We see what these other quarterbacks are going for. This is a perfect out where no one will ever question you. No one will ever question you if you cut ties with Jimmy Garoppolo right now, in my opinion, because you're seeing what these other quarterbacks are going for. Matt Ryan, 3rd round pick. Carson Wentz, 2nd round pick. They're all more talented than Jimmy Garoppolo. So where you have a lot to lose here is if Jimmy Garoppolo does beat out Trey Lance, that makes you look horrible. You just set this franchise back before he even had the opportunity to start the 2022 season like so many expected to have happen. So I would honestly rather cut Jimmy Garoppolo, see Trey Lance, give him a chance to either shine or flame out, opposed to saying Garoppolo beat out Trey Lance again. Because that's just the public perception of the organization for the mistake they made. If he cannot beat out Jimmy Garoppolo in his 2nd year, oh man, like there's just so much more to lose. So much more to lose. And they're already losing right now by keeping him on the roster because they're missing out on high quality free agents that they could be signing. There's still guys available. A lot of impact players. Tyrann Mathieu, you're going to tell me he's not an upgrade in this secondary, even if Jaquiski Tartt comes back? That's an upgrade. That's an immediate upgrade. He gets interceptions. He forces fumbles. This secondary has been deprived of a true playmaker for years. Since Deion Sanders. I'm being dead serious here. If Tyrann Mathieu was a 49er, he's the most decorated secondary player since Deion Sanders. I'd argue yes. Who's more decorated than a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, who's still available, who you have the money for to sign if you cut Jimmy Garoppolo right now? So I hate seeing people on Twitter that, okay, if they really wanted a player, they can keep Garoppolo on the roster, keep restructuring contracts, and then go ahead and go sign him. I don't buy into that one bit. If you walk into a job interview and you have an offer on the table and, if they can't guarantee you the job, they're like, hey, we're going to try to clear this up for you. We want you to be a part of our team, but we can't put pen to paper just yet because we have to do X, Y, and Z first. That's not as tempting. And I know we're in the later stages of free agency. It's been a week already. But the bottom line is you have an opportunity to make your football team better. The luxury of having a starting quarterback on a rookie deal is for you to maximize your ability financially, bring in a star-studded team, and you can still do that if you cut Jimmy Garoppolo. Look at all these contenders around the NFL right now. Look at them. You got the Bills signing Von Miller. That's a contender making a huge signing. The Chiefs signed Juju Smith. You got the Rams getting Allen Robinson. Granted, they lost Von Miller, but who saw that happening? So there's all these other contenders are making their team better, and you're not because Jimmy Garoppolo is still around.
Okay, so let me just throw a couple of different things at you. One, as far as the quarterback, if it was a quarterback thing, again, I'll just say it last time I say it. If Trey Lance can't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo in an open competition, none of the other stuff matters as far as what the fans think. It just doesn't matter. And then now I'm gonna change the topic along the bottom because we're gonna get into this. Will lead us into the thoughts on the free agency moves right now because you've already given a number of them, but just right now with where the 49ers stand, if they just get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo tonight, we wake up tomorrow morning, Jimmy Garoppolo is no longer a 49er. That will give them $18 million in cap space.
Yep.
Because right now they're only at $2 million with the signings they have, and that doesn't include Ray McLeod. But his numbers are the one that hasn't been put out there yet, but everybody else has. So the Farmers would have a roughly $19 million in cap space, somewhere around there. That really gives them about $11 million to spend on other players. Not a lot. Doesn't give them enough money to go out. It wouldn't have given them really. Maybe they could have gotten one of these other bigger name free agents like the Chandler Joneses of the world or something like that, who are around $8 million. Not anything more than that. The 49ers, that their rookie class is going to take $8.5 million off of their cap hit if they keep all of their draft picks as they are right now. They usually keep about $3 million in reserve for the season for ads throughout the year. So that takes you to 11. So cutting Garoppolo right now doesn't really give you a big amount of ammunition to go out and make signings. And that's why, in a lot of ways, you might as well just go ahead and take Jimmy Garoppolo, extend him for a short term. He's only going to make $25.5 million. If you extend him, there's some things you can do to save yourself about $12 million in cap space. Do I suggest doing that route? If you're going to be stuck with the guy and your option is that to release him, I'd rather have you keep him and have a solid backup than have your backup number 2 be Nate Sudfeld.
That's fair.
And then I have some other thoughts on the free agency, but as far as the moves that they've made to this point, how do you feel?
Ooh, I have one more thing to add if I could jump in. So this
let's go.
Well, okay. This is just kind of rebuttal one of the things we're talking about, Jimmy Garoppolo, and how if they cut him, they would save $17 million. That would give them $11 million to sign a free agent or a couple free agents. When you take into consideration, they still have to sign their draft class. And I think Parag Marate has brainwashed the 49ers community and taking the cap so literally and so seriously. And you look around the NFL and no one tiptoes around the cap like the 49ers. It's never made sense to me how you see these teams that have they're negative in cap space. Look at the Colts a couple years ago. They signed Patrick Mahomes. They signed Chris Jones. They signed Travis Kelce, and they're still able to go out and sign or trade for Orlando Brown and give him a contract. The 49ers take the cap so literally, so seriously. The Rams do it all the time. Look at what they do. I want this organization to just push all their chips onto the table. And I've been saying that for years. That's what the Rams are doing. Look at the last 2 Super Bowl winners and the moves that they made in the offseason and during the season. Starting with the Buccaneers, they went out and got Tom Brady. They re-signed Shaq Barrett. I believe they had him the year before the Super Bowl. And then he contributed. Ndamukong Suh, was he around on that Buccaneers team? Like, they just invest and invest and invest. They go all in. The Rams this past year, they made the trade for Matthew Stafford. And you know what? If the 49ers were as aggressive as the Rams were, that was my biggest mistake last offseason, saying that Matthew Stafford was not a big enough upgrade over Garoppolo. That's something I'll own. I didn't want Matthew Stafford either. And if they had Matthew Stafford on this team last year, this is probably the Super Bowl team. The 49ers are the ones hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Then they go get Odell Beckham Jr. Then they go get Von Miller. I just draw the comparison too between the Giants, the San Francisco Giants, and the 49ers, where you see these LA teams, they're go-getters. They're trying to acquire the talent. They're doing it. And the 49ers, here they are, tiptoeing. Let's think ahead of 2023 when Nick Bosa might need a contract extension. Screw that. Win now. Tired of it, Jack. That's the last thing. But as far as
well, okay, let me stop you. Let me stop you.
Okay.
That's a good point for a rebuttal right there. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because I like what you're saying, because that's one of the things that I had some arguments last week on Twitter about was the D Ford deal. And there's only so many players that you can restructure, and when you look at the way the 49ers contracts are set up, there's only so many players that they can restructure because of the lack of space between their salary and their signing bonus and all that kind of stuff. You know, it was easy. Eric Armstead was easy. That was an easy one to check off. You could see that he had the money. George Kittle was another one. I wasn't so sure about giving him an extension the way that they did it, just because of the injury history and, you know, pushing the money off can you know, usually sometimes it can come back to bite you at the end. And he's the kind of guy with his injury history I'm a little nervous about. You know, and then I think you're going to see Fred Warner get done next year. When you look at Fred Warner's contract, his cap hit's still relatively low this year, but next year it takes a big jump. But next year it takes a big jump in part because his base salary goes up. And so that allows you to, that's where your restructures come in, right? That's why I've always liked Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. I always felt like they could have, if they liked him enough, they could have easily restructured him and driven his cap hit down in 2019. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do, but they don't have very many guys left on there that they can restructure. The deals that they have left are Jimmy Ward, at least in my opinion, Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward, if you think Jimmy Ward's a long-term player for the 49ers, or he should be a long-term player for the 49ers, that's an extension that you do that drives down his cap hit, gives you some money to spend this year. The same thing with Emmanuel Mosley. Do you think Emmanuel Mosley's good enough to stick around for a couple years? That's another guy that you do it with. That takes you to Samson Ebukam is kind of the next one. Is Samson Ebukam a guy you want to keep around for another year, maybe two? Okay, then you do, you know, give him an extra year on his deal to kind of lower his hit this year, and obviously all those things move it to future years. But when you look at the cap numbers in 2024, the year after this new TV money hits, they're jumping up, and that's the year that that's when you're gonna see Nick Bosa's deal done. You're gonna see, you know, his numbers hit, and some of these other guys that they already have are gonna hit. You know, like Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel will get in their contracts in a little bit, but I think when you look at the way that it sets up for them, I think you're going to see only one of those two get done, and it'll be interesting when we get there. As far as your thoughts on free agency and the players that I understand, like, you know, they feel like they should have gone all in. Here's my thing on it real quick, and I'll start, and then you can rebut to me on this one. This is a team, we just got done talking about how the 49ers went to the NFC Championship game last year, and there was a super chat that I missed earlier on that I did want to bring up real quick from Richie. Thanks for the donation, Richie. He says, Nick, they did well this season, overachieving and almost making it to the Super Bowl, but they haven't done much so far to get over the hump. The thing for me on that is I'm going to say this is a team that was just in the NFC Championship game. They're returning 18 of their 22 starters, maybe 17, I guess, if you take out Jimmy Garoppolo out of that and you slide in Trey Lance. But this is a team that doesn't have a lot of holes, and they also have a pretty good group of depth. If you feel, you know, when you look at the way this team's played the last couple of years, and you know, as far as getting over the hump, that comes down to the quarterback. I think that if you do go with Trey Lance, that's the guy that gets you over the hump. Trey Lance is the guy that gets you over the hump. It always comes down to the quarterback. The difference between the Rams in 2021 and 2020, quarterback. The difference for the Chiefs all those years until 2018, quarterback. That's the one position that's got to get over the hump is the quarterback. Everything else, I think the 49ers are okay with.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. The quarterback position, it has the most power on the field to make you take that huge leap, help you make that huge leap. So I agree. Yeah. Okay.
So just as far as their moves so far through free agency, though, what are your thoughts? Other than let's just take the ones that they're signed with. I understand that you wanted them to make some other moves.
Oh, of course.
But as far as the moves that they have made to this point, what are your thoughts?
I like the majority of the moves. I would say. Granted, I did not hear of two of the guys that they signed prior to signing them. You know, but starting with Charvarius Ward, I did like the signing. I understand being reluctant to give J.C. Jackson the type of money that he received. You had a huge need at corner this past year. And from what I've read and from what I've seen of Charvarius Ward, he looks like he's going to fit extremely well. He's durable. He's very consistent, makes plays on the ball. His ESPN Next Gen stats are really, really impressive to look at. So I'm excited about that signing. And I'm just excited that there's more bodies, more competition in the cornerback room. I'm really, really pleased about that because I was so tired of Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick getting meaningful snaps over the course of last season. Ambry Thomas grew. It's not like he's just being handed the starting job because he closed out last season well. I'm excited that there's someone else in there to compete. I know we're talking about moves that they would make, but I would also love to see K'Wan Williams come back, just because I love Mosley outside, I love Ward outside, and we'll see what happens in that nickel spot. So I do like the Ward signing. It wasn't the no question about it. He's a number one cornerback in the NFL signing. It was a solid, good 49ers signing that makes their team better. That's kind of cost efficient. And then I love the Ray McCloud signing. He has a fumbling problem. We saw a lot of fumbles on special teams last year, but his explosiveness is really exciting. And if he can just clean up his ability to hold on or to not lose the football and take better care of the football, I think that's a signing that can hold a lot of power. He led the NFL in punt return yards last year. And I've just been so fed up of seeing guys like Trent Taylor and Travis Benjamin constantly being trotted out there to return punts. Brandon Ayuk got a couple of them, and I don't think he got a fair shot to show off his explosiveness. But I like the Ray McCloud setting. And then you got George Odom from the Colts, who I didn't know was a 2020 first team special teams All-Pro. And then the other guy from for the Packers. You got to help me out with this guy. But they're addressing the areas they're addressing the areas that they struggled in last year. Special teams was awful. Special teams was really, really bad. And it was just so funny that they blocked the punt in the Packers game to help send you to the NFC Championship game. Pretty comical considering how they were the majority of the season. So I'm happy with those individual moves, but the overall body of work this offseason in comparison to what's going on around the league, I'm not satisfied with. But I think that looking at the signings one by one, they make sense. They're logical. I just wish for more, but I do like the signings.
Yeah, I like the Ward signing. I think the Ward signing really helps them out because that's, when you look at where they were last year, especially when Ambry Thomas took over, they were kind of forced to just sit in this too deep shell, playing zone, leaving everything open underneath, and teams are able to kind of pick them apart, especially the teams with the better quarterbacks like Stafford in the championship game and even the Bengals game to an extent with Joe Burrow out there in Cincy. And I think by putting Ward in the game, now you're able to tighten up that coverage because of his ability to win in man coverage. That just helps you out because that just gives them a better group across the board. I think that'll help their safeties out and everybody else in their coverage. I do like what you said. The special teams were awful. I know it's funny because you talk about like the touchdown they gave up against Seattle, which was big. The free, the fake punt for a first down against Dallas, which they still end up winning that game, but still a bad play. And everybody points to, well, they scored a touchdown to win in Green Bay, but it's beyond that. It's, it was so bad last year to the point where when the 49ers returned a kickoff to the 25, it was almost like you wanted to stand up and give them a standing ovation, right? I mean, they couldn't get the ball back to the 25 to save their life, or meanwhile the other team's getting it out to the 35 or 40 on a regular basis. It felt like. So definitely some good moves there, and I do like. Definitely. I think that the loss of DJ Jones is a tough one because he's so good against the run, but I feel like the addition there of Hassan Ridgeway isn't really to address the DJ Jones loss as much as it is to address the loss of Contavious Street. They played about roughly the same number of snaps, and I think you're going to be able to get roughly the same type of production out of Ridgeway that you were getting out of Street.
Yeah, and I not necessarily but I really understand moving on from DJ Jones. He got a nice payday from the Broncos, and you did just draft Javon Kinlaw. Eric Armstead had a ton of success inside. And there's two guys that I'm really high on that haven't been discussed. Kevin Givens, I predicted him to be a breakout candidate going into last year. And of course, that didn't happen. He was suspended, got into some stuff. But I still think Kevin Givens is a really solid football player that can have a strong impact on the field in a rotational defensive lineman role. And then Mo Hurst. Mo Hurst got hurt towards the end of last year, but I thought he played well early in the year. And those are two guys that can help fill the void of DJ Jones. And it's going to be tough to fill that void because he was so great he was good. He was an underrated pass rusher. He was great against the run. So that's going to be tough. But I think there's a lot of pieces that will complement each other in closing that gap.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're going to need Javon Kinlaw to be better. People look at him and kind of think of him as a run stuffer. I don't really. He's been. I don't know if I see him as a run stuffer like we saw from DJ Jones, and he got pushed around a lot more. So that's going to be the one thing on their defensive side right now as they look in their front seven that's a question mark for me. Is the Javon Kinlaw, can he step up? Is he going to be healthy? Can he fill that role? If he can, then everything else is hunky dory around it. And they do have some depth. Arden Key, I guess it looks like he might go somewhere else, but I would say Charles Omenihu probably steps into that role and can fill it because he's kind of a similar type of a player to Key with everything that he brings to the table. So it'll be fun. Then you go over to the offensive side of the ball. And like Richie, thanks again, Richie, for another one. He says the lack of quality O-line could be the Achilles heel next season. And then he also mentioned Kerry Hyder being an answer at the edge pick so they can focus on O-line in this draft. What do you think about the offensive line moving forward?
I'm very concerned about the offensive line moving forward. Trent Williams, you have nothing to worry about there as long as he stays healthy. Left guard, I do like that Aaron Banks is moving to his natural position, or the plan is for him to move back to left guard where he played all of his collegiate football games at. Center, where's Alex Mack at? Where's his head at? Is he going to retire? Is he going to be around? So there's a little bit of a question mark there. Right guard has just been a revolving door for this team ever since this regime has stepped into the building. And then Mike McGlinchey, how's he going to look? He has not impressed me at all pass blocking. Some people say that he's such a great run blocker that he deserves an extension. He deserves that second contract. I don't see it happening. So there's a lot to be worried about with the 49ers offensive line. And that's just another thing that's mind-boggling to me is that you invested so much you made such a strong investment in Trey Lance that you got to protect him. He's not the scrambling out of the pocket quarterback. He's a pocket passer. You got to protect him. And yeah, I'm not happy with where the offensive line is at right now. This regime hasn't really shown that they can draft and nail offensive linemen that are both strong pass blockers and run blockers. Looking at Mike McGlinchey, they were 50-50 there. They got the run blocker, but not the strong pass blocker. And you look at Aaron Banks, he's just a complete mystery man. You don't want a mystery man when you're drafting him in the second round. So I have a lot of concerns with the 49ers offensive line. I don't like that those concerns are going to ultimately be addressed in the draft, I feel like. And then just another reason why you wish you had more spending money. I would love to have been able to bring in a guy like Andrew Norwell, who just to kind of compete for a guard spot, or even just be plug and play guards are easy to find. You just have to have a little bit of coin to dish out, and the 49ers haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be I'm not as down on the offensive line, I think, as some might be. This is an offense. This is the 49ers team again that went into Los Angeles in Week 18 without Trent Williams and Tom Compton playing right tackle in a winner go home situation and won the game, which got them into the playoffs, which took them through. I think they probably would have even been better off in the NFC Championship game, quite honestly, if it had been Colt McKivitz instead of Trent Williams over at left tackle, just because he was struggling so bad with that ankle injury, which was a bummer for him. But this is Trent Williams on one side. If Alex Mack comes back, and it seems like it's pointing in that direction, it helps them. If not, then they need to go center early in the second round. There's a couple of guys there that they could pick up that are pretty good. I think Alec Lidstrom, I think is his name, from Boston College, is a guy who really fits the Shanahan mold of an offensive lineman, especially at center. Right guard, it's going to be Daniel Brunskill. He's going to obviously have a competition on his hands most likely, but you'd expect him to start at right guard. Right tackle is a little bit of a question mark over there. I think your questions are really at left guard and right tackle, because McGlinchey's going to be, might be brought along slowly because of that injury to his thigh. Not his thigh, but you know what I'm talking about there. His quad tendon. So, you have some guys that can fill in over there that on spot duty, such as Jalen Moore, Justin School, those guys. I mean, and they have a bunch of guys that they have already that that I think they can mold and work around. So again, I just go back to it. I understand people getting frustrated with them, and this is a team that I think is really deep and really good.
Yeah.
I think they're a lot better than people are giving them. I think they're a lot better than all the yelling and screaming that's going on.
Yeah. Well, I get it. I get it. And it's the off season right now where you see a lot of big names moving around. It can lead to a lot of impatience. And, that's just kind of where I'm at too. Like at the end of the day, it is a very talented football team, but are you getting better? And you clearly have the opportunity to get better by moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. Like right now, if Alex Mack were to retire, hopefully you have an idea of what's going on. JC Treader is right there. A very decorated 31, 32-year-old center who could step in and just like Jonathan Goodwin, when Jonathan Goodwin joined the Jim Harbaugh 49ers and was just plugged in right there at center and was a Pro Bowler and just held down that unit. JC Treader's available right now. And so you're trying to figure out what's going on with Alex Mack. I'm with you right there with McGlinchey. There's a big question mark right there. And then on the left side, is Aaron Banks? Oh man, that's just a tough one. It's a tough one, but you're right. At the end of the day, they're in a good spot. They have a very talented roster, and they are one of the better teams in the NFC. And the good news is that the conference that's getting absolutely loaded right now is the AFC, and the NFC is getting weaker day by day, seemingly. And they are a good spot. They're still a top team in the NFC, but you gotta look over and look ahead to, are you where the Rams are at right now? And there's still a pretty there's a pretty good sized talent gap between the Rams and the 49ers right now, in my opinion, just based on the moves that have been made this offseason. Of course, you lost Von Miller, you acquired Allen Robinson. I know PFF has like this war chart as far as the how each team has been moving and grading out. In relation to all the offseason moves, and the 49ers have kind of been right there in the middle. They haven't been hurt too much. They haven't gained too much. So they're kind of right where they're at. But it is a good team. It's a good team that should be in the playoffs again next year and be able to make some noise. But my issue is just that you can do more, and you should be doing more because you have the rookie contract.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You also got to remember when they do those deals with these guys where they're bringing them in and they're cheap on year two. On year one, year two can sometimes be a little tricky. And you look at the contracts of these guys, you're looking at $30 million plus for a couple of the names that have been brought up, that I've seen brought up. They probably could have fit him in this year, but next year, then you're really up against the cap because how many of these guys are you going to pay top dollar to? And I think that's the question. And before we go too far along, I do want to let's bring up another topic really quick because it goes. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to impact an extension for Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel?
I don't think so. I don't think he'll be the one to impact an extension between Bosa and Deebo Samuel. If anything, it's the decision-making of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan that are going to impact the extension of Bosa and Samuel. Garoppolo should not be on the roster. It's not on him. He's not impacting the situation. It's the decision-making of the front office. So I don't think it's Garoppolo. And here's a couple things. And when I bring up cutting Jimmy Garoppolo and clearing that money to make the team more talented by adding free agents, at least one person, usually more than one person, my mentions always goes, well, that money's going to Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa anyway. It comes up every single time that I suggest that the 49ers should sign some new free agents. And I totally get Deebo Samuel. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. If I don't know what his cap hit is, I'd imagine it's not all that high, being an early second round pick, couple $1 million. I would not step foot onto the field if I was Deebo Samuel without a new contract. And I said the same exact thing about George Kittle when it was time for his contract extension. What does Deebo Samuel have left to prove? He's one of, if not the best offensive player in the NFL outside the quarterback position. He's one of, if not the most versatile offensive weapon in the NFL. I would not play another down in the NFL until I get a new contract if I'm Deebo Samuel. I have nothing left to prove. I'm not making that much money. My playing style, like George Kittle a couple years back, could possibly lead to me getting hurt and jeopardizing the money that I feel like I have already I'm owed, I'm deserved, because I've just contributed so much to this magical playoff run last year. Nick Bosa, on the other hand, he was a second overall pick. And you look at his contract, he has a $10 million cap hit this year. Then he has a $17.9 million cap hit if you exercise his fifth year option. So I don't think there's a lot of urgency to get Bosa's contract done. So Samuel, and I know this doesn't exactly tie into the question of does it impact Garoppolo, or does Garoppolo have an impact on holding this up? But I just don't think it's necessary to extend Bosa right now.
No, I'm with you. So when I look at this, the way that I see the Samuel deal, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, So Samuel, it was a second round pick. He's going to carry a cap hit this year of 4.9 million. So it's not a big number. And so what I think is, last year the 49ers made Fred Warner the highest paid inside linebacker in the league, just under $20 million a year. When they did his deal, his salary cap number stayed the same. He was going to be about 3 million. He stayed right at that same number, maybe even slightly lower than what he was originally going to get. I think the 49ers can keep Deebo Samuel, get him in the range of 23 to $25 million. That's probably where he's going to land, where he should, and still be able to keep him at that same cap hit here in 2022. And then the numbers increase in 23 and 24. So I don't think Garoppolo impacts Samuel at all. Nick Bosa, I don't either, because I think what's going to happen with Bosa, I think you're right. I think the direction they're going to take is they're going to run the 5th-year option with Bosa, and then they'll sign him next year. So in 2020, in the 2023 offseason is when we're going to see a deal get done for Bosa. That's long-term, really pretty much hitting at the peak of the start of this new salary cap with the new TV deal when it starts to hit the salary cap in 2024.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And sorry, I was trying to pull up Spot Track to make sure I had the correct cap hit. So Bosa's owed 10.8, just about $11 million this upcoming season if they exercise his 5th-year option, which I'm sure they're going to. There's no question that they're going to. If you can get a edge rusher of his caliber for a $17.8 million cap hit, you're going to do it. So, and again, Bosa, because he was the 2nd overall pick, he made a lot of money for himself in college and being a Bosa brother and a part of the Bosa family. I would be surprised if he would hold out going into next year or even this season, making $10 million and then $17 million. Of course, he's worth a lot more, but that's why you drafted him second overall. You have 5 years of control. I just don't really see the urgency there unless he's head over heels. I need an extension right now. That's the only way I see them really pushing the envelope with the Bosa extension anytime soon, but they definitely should get Samuel done. And just thinking about just the contracts that these wide receivers were getting this offseason, like Christian Kirk getting, like, it's just wild. It's wild. It's crazy. So it's going to be crazy to see what Deebo Samuel ends up getting. Yeah, I'd be reluctant. To give him the money that Davante Adams just got. That's for sure, because of his playing style. And he does have a lengthy injury history. And I do think that that's a reason to kind of take a pause and assess, is this the best move, the most logical move? Is this the safe? I don't know.
Yeah, when it comes to Samuel, that's the concern for me is the injury history that he has. And if you're going to be making him one of the top paid wide receivers in the league and also using him in that running back role that they were doing, that starts to get a little fishy, not fishy, but that gets a little hairy for me because
for sure,
I really like the guy as a receiver. Obviously, I like him as a running back too because he's so darn good. But when you're giving him $23 million a year or whatever it is with his injury history, it makes it a little more scary than it was at $4 million this year.
So let's just say that if he wants to I'm trying to look at Davante Adams' number right now. So his cap hit this year is only $8 million. Then it skyrockets to $30 million, $21 million. Then they have a potential out, and then it's $40 million and $40 million. So what's the average of all that? 5 years, $140 million. I can't do that amount. 30 around there, around $30 million a year. Like that is. At that point, if Deebo Samuel's demanding that sort of money, you do have to kind of take a step back, remove the emotional attachment, everything is accomplished, and just be like, what could we get for him? You have to explore other avenues there before. At least I would do my due diligence on other options before just giving him a Davante Adams type contract. You got to at least think about it, right? You just can't give him that kind of money without thinking to yourselves, what could we possibly get in return that may be more worth our while in comparison to giving this guy $30 million when he's missed a lot of football games dating back to South Carolina as a freshman?
Yeah, and that's the thing. But you're looking, the signing bonus even makes it tough. The signing bonus of 19.2 would make it tough for the 49ers this year with him, I think, a little bit, because that's still going to average out to $3.9 million a year plus whatever his pay is and stuff like that. So that would make it a little rough for him. I'm just trying to look at it. See, even like I'm just looking at the numbers right now on Davante Adams. Those are tough numbers for them in 2023 as well. A $30 million cap hit because they really don't have much salary to work with to restructure him. They can't really even do a restructure with him until 2024. That's really going to give him much of a savings at all. That's a wacky contract that they gave him. It makes sense for them. I think I think it's a strong move, but I also think it's a tough sell. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah, no, I'm excited about this offseason, really, to be honest with you. I think the 49ers have made some good moves. I think that there's some moves that are still to come. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening between now and end of July when the team reports to training camp. But I feel like the moves they made in free agency are solid, and now they have the draft to work with as well. And they're obviously they're going to add a couple of pieces here and there, but I wouldn't expect this. I don't really expect them to be big players in free agency. Is there anybody in particular that you think they might go after though?
Not that I think they would get. It's all my preferences, who knows what they're going to do, who they're going to end up signing, but I would like to sign a couple more edge guys. Like it's just, you can never have enough pass rushers. You never can. That's why I'm hoping that Arden Key makes his way back. I would still like to see them attempt to re-sign K'Wan Williams, bring back Jaquiski Tart. Just because I just love the continuity in the secondary. I like guys that are familiar with the system. The 49ers have had a phenomenal pass defense the last several years. I think they've been top in the top 10, higher than that every single year since 2018. So I love that. Granted, they don't generate turnovers. I would love to just have them come back because we've seen what they can accomplish. They play well together. They have the chemistry on the back end of the defense. So I really, really like that. Those are players that I would like to see them bring back. Then there's a couple other edge guys. Derek Barnett, I wouldn't mind kicking the tires on him to see if Chris Kosaric could just have him live up to his draft stock. Jabril Peppers is another name. Tyrann Matthews, the big name that I'm sure won't happen. But there's guys out there that I think could really help this football team win. It's just a matter of clearing some cap space.
I think that for me the safety I'm looking for is Terrell Edmonds from Pittsburgh. That's the guy that I think. I mean, I'd like Jaquiski Tart. I think he's a really good player. I don't see him coming back on a cheap deal that really works for the 49ers. It doesn't seem like he's leaning that way, but there's a lot of safeties on the market, so we'll see where that all plays out. If you have a choice between Edmonds and Tart, and their numbers are the same in terms of cost, I'd probably go with. I'd jump at the option to bring back Tart if their numbers are the same.
Yeah.
I just it'll be fun to watch how it plays out. I think this is a team that where there's a lot of hand wringing going on. We're not even a week into free agency. Free agency officially kicked off on Wednesday. It's Monday, and people are losing their minds, and it's kind of fun to watch and a little exhausting at times too.
Yeah.
See, I like you because I like watching you get excited. Those are some.
Well, yeah. Well, that's
my funnest videos.
It's always tough. I mean, my philosophy, like if I was a GM, my philosophy would I love Les Snead. I'm jealous that the Rams have Les Snead. His shirt, F them picks at the Super Bowl party. Just like do what you got to do to win. No one cares what your cap hit looks like or how many players you have to cut if you get a Super Bowl. Like, do you think the Rams are really thinking to themselves right now, oh my gosh, look at all these players we're going to have to move on from down the road because who's worried about that when you're drinking on the parade, on the parade floats? Like, no one's worried about that. My philosophy, win now, worry about the cap later. And if you can do that and maximize your chances to win, you got to do it. And there's a time and a place. Like, obviously, if you're the Houston Texans or a bottom-feeding team, that's not the time for you to get aggressive. But when you are this close to a Super Bowl, like the 49ers have been 2 out of the last 3 years, and you have opportunities to make splashy moves that can help you get over that hump, similar to the comment that was made earlier, you got to do it. So that's what I would be doing. And that's why I tweet the way that I do, is because I'm a 49er fan that's been deprived of a Super Bowl his entire life. And you see what goes on around the NFL and teams remaining aggressive like the Chiefs, like the Buccaneers, like the Rams. And then you have no choice but to compare. We're a contender, they're a contender, yet they're making these flashy moves. Like I saw someone say that Allen Robinson's washed. Did you see what Allen Robinson did the year before last with Mitch Trubisky? I'm not convinced he's washed. That's what people were saying about Odell Beckham. Look at all the success he had in a very short time with the Rams. Because the Browns and Baker Mayfield, I would be shocked if Allen Robinson, we do not see him look like his Jacksonville Jaguar self pre-ACL. That's the kind of that's a good move for them. And now you got to worry about Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp. They just traded Robert Woods, so that kind of helps out there. But he was coming off an injury anyway. So win now, Jack. Win now.
No, I'm with you. I've always thought it was funny to watch people get say all kinds of stuff about the Rams last year when they were making the moves and everything like that. And I agree with you. When you win the Super Bowl, nobody really cares. And I laughed at people after the Super Bowl complaining about how the Rams did it, because I think most people forget the way the 49ers did it back in '94. The big money they spent to bring in all these, a ton of key guys to get them over the hump of that season.
And coincidentally, was that the last year the 49ers won a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, they made all those.
Well,
they
that's what I'm saying, though. That's like,
they made all those moves. They made all those moves. The Deion Sanders one is the one that put them over the top.
For sure. But of course it was. Of course it was. But that was the big splashy move. Not that there was a Deion Sanders available. I mean, say what you want about J.C. Jackson. He's no Deion Sanders. But could you just imagine, suppose Josina Anderson said Chandler Jones was considering the 49ers. And who knows how much interest the 49ers had in Chandler Jones. But that's the kind of move. If you can have that Shaq Barrett, and who's the other pass rusher on the Buccaneers that I'm blanking on right now? Like when you can have that much talent on the defensive line and just get after quarterbacks and make their life miserable, that's a type of move that if you get the Chandler Jones, that's an all-pro, and he's paired next to Nick Bosa, that's the kind of crazy move that can all of a sudden really help you out and get you to that Super Bowl. So I don't know. That's just my philosophy, man. Win or go home. Go big. Go big. All chips in. This is the time, though. Like, look at everything, time and place for this kind of stuff. Look at this roster right now and all the talent. You can free up $20 million damn near with a snap of a finger, just cutting to Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's a little late now. It's a little late in the free agency. I know we're only a weekend, but a lot of the big names are off. But that's just how my brain's wired. You can do this. You can do this. Just put the chips in. I wanted them to sign Jadeveon Clowney going into 2020 after they came off the Super Bowl loss. And that probably wouldn't have pushed them over the head. But, just try to acquire the talent while you can and take advantage. Just take advantage of Trey Lance's second-year rookie deal contract. I really do feel like they're doing him a disservice and the team a disservice by not maximizing what they can do as far as bringing in talent goes. Like it leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion.
I hear what you're saying. And I do. One of the things that I like about you, Nick, is that you are extremely passionate. You leave it, you wear it on your sleeve. You make no apologies for that. And you put your opinions out there. You came on here tonight and we had some disagreement. We agreed on some stuff. We disagreed on some stuff. And I had a blast talking to you. It's been a long time, and I'm thank you so much for coming on.
Well, of course, Jack. It's a pleasure being on. Anytime you need me, I'm available. We got to do this more often. I'll have you on mine next. Faithful Fanatic, baby. Let's do it.
There you go. Let me know when you want to do it. We'll make it happen, and we'll go from there. So. Yeah, but that's it for the show tonight, everybody. I want to thank everybody in the comments section who took the time to watch us. Everybody who is watching the show as well. If you could just hit that little like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit the little bell notification. And Nick, do you have a channel as well?
Yeah. Nick Newman. It's on my Twitter. Go to my Twitter at @NinerNick_22. I have my Linktree profile up there. It has all my links: Instagram, Twitter, Anchor, perfect. Spotify, all that good stuff. YouTube.
There you go. And Nick's Twitter handle is right there and right next to him there. So make sure you go check it out. And if you're not following him on all those other platforms, go do it, because this guy has some fun takes, and he's a smart 49er fan, and it's a pleasure to have you on. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much again.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. I will be back tomorrow night with So Real Sunil for our throwbacks night.